Welcome back to Salt City Hoops, my friends. My name is Mark Pereira, here to talk about the Utah Jazz week that was, the week that is ahead. The Jazz keep having a lot of fun with what they're doing out there, and I keep seeing comments everywhere like this is the most fun I've had since before the trades of Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell, and I think that's overstating it a little bit. I think for one thing, there's still some pretty bad moments around here. But also, I think a lot of us forget how kind of fun that first season was, where we kind of all looked around at that Conley-Clarkson marketing team or whatever, and we had a little bit of fun with that and had surprises with all the new faces. But yeah, no, I'm also having a lot of fun. But yeah, like I said, I'm Mark Pereira here once again to talk about all the cool things happening and maybe some stressful things, maybe some negative things. We'll see where this night takes us. If you're on YouTube, you'll notice we're trying a little new lighting style here. I'm typically because of work and family obligations, I'm recording these at night, and like the office lights don't really portend well to some of the YouTube lighting preferences and everything. So I tried something different today. So it's a slightly darker and perhaps more theatrical. Maybe you enjoy that a little bit. And so that is to say, let me know how it looks or how you're feeling. I know we've also made some changes to some audio things and whatever. So more importantly, by the time when we release this episode, it'll be my birthday. And for my birthday, I would love if anyone listening, watching, whatever you got, leave a comment. Drop a subscription. They're always free. If you're already subscribed, man, what a review of some sorts, that would be astounding. Always love feedback. Again, I love doing this. I know Dan loves doing this just for the love of the game. We just like to get our thoughts out there on our preferred mediums. I like just talking about it to get my brain worms out of my brain and everything, but I also like hearing how you guys think about things too. So for my birthday, drop a comment somewheres to get the conversation going. I love talking to other Jazz fans around the world about your thoughts, where you agree, disagree with me. And if you're just listening to this for the first time or the second time or whatever, and you haven't liked or subscribed to the podcast yet, man, just go ahead and add it to the list of podcasts. You're not obligated to listen to every single episode, but it does help the algorithm monster reach more NBA fans. And that's always, we meet more Jazz fans. The conversation gets growing. That's a lot of fun for me. And I'll keep doing it. I'll keep doing this. It's a lot of fun. And I don't know how much reviews matter or not, but hey, it's my birthday, so you're going to do it anyway, right? Anyways, the Jazz week that was, this was one of our more exciting weeks because we had a double overtime game-winning shot by Keyonte George. You heard that right, a double overtime win at home in front of the home crowd. Some great fan videos of the moment. Keyonte George in two overtimes after a very offensive heavy performance by both teams with very, very, very little time left on the clock. He was able to sink a three-pointer to give the Jazz a victory over the Chicago Bulls. I think the score was 1,407 to 1,404. Just a huge score posted in that one. Yeah, 150 to 147 due to the double overtime. And even though Keyonte George had a fabulous game, 44 minutes with 33 points, 3 threes, perfect 10 and 10 from the free throw line, 6 assists and 4 steals. I don't know, casual 47 points for Lauri Markkanen, including, I think, at least like 38 in regulation or something like that. So he had 47 and 7 and 11 to 13 from the free throw line, 6 to 17 from 3. And just the euphoria of that particular game. And as we are going to be taking a closer look at the standings as far as where the Jazz sit on retaining their draft pick or not, you look at certain games as like, well, was that a game that you were okay winning. And that one absolutely was, right? So the front end of a Chicago back-to-back, and Chicago's on the road, and in the way that they won, where you're seeing development from players, and especially and you get a moment for Keyonte that he hasn't had in his NBA career. Keyonte George had a game-winning shot in the Rising Stars game 2 years ago, 1 year ago. I really don't remember, because this is not a pro All-Star Weekend podcast. I don't really watch that too much. But you did see his first NBA game winner. And this is a game that you just get excited to watch and walk away feeling like, yeah, I'm happier as a Jazz fan because of it. Look, you're going to sandwich that amazing performance with 2 losses, right? A defensive total dump against Atlanta. They gave up 80 points in the first half against Atlanta. Only gave up 53 or 52 points or something like that in the second half, but giving up 80 points and a half is not ideal. And they ended up having that game tied to start the fourth quarter. Ended up losing it by 10 because they could not stop Onyeka Okongwu hitting a career high in threes in that game. And that was at home, and Atlanta did not have Trae Young. And then followed it up with a game. So the Chicago game, the double overtime game, happens on Sunday, and then a game that had a lot of national eyeballs on it. Utah travels to Los Angeles for LeBron's season opener. He's had his back injury, perhaps a chronic back injury that is going to derail the end of his astounding career. But with his first game back, all national eyes were on, well, how are Luka and LeBron and Austin Reeves going to play together? DeAndre Ayton to a much lesser extent, et cetera, and Jazz could not keep up defensively at all. Made it close a couple times, ultimately lost by 14. Does not express how great the difference of the game was. I think it was definitely, the game was over and very, very, very early in the fourth quarter. So you're kind of saying this team is kind of always going to be some level of 1-2, 1-3 every 3-4 game stretch, right? And that's kind of going to be the ratio as a Jazz fan that you're okay with. And you want the wins to be very, very cool and exciting, and most importantly, full of player development. And that's what we had in that Chicago game. I hope everyone had a great time on that one. Interesting to see, it was also Kobe White's first game back. And he's no LeBron James, but it's also interesting to see Chicago working him back into the rotation. He ended up shooting 14 free throws. He looked very comfortable out there. He's coming back from a calf injury, so those are very sensitive and delicate. They gave him the night off the next day. He was on a minutes limit and did not start the overtime periods, but because the games were close in both overtime periods, he ended up playing at the end of both of those overtime periods, minutes limit be damned, and he was effective out there, which was interesting. But again, it was just everything to do with Lauri Markkanen this season. We're going to talk about him in a second. He's back, and that game against the Bulls was a good showing of his entire well-rounded game. I think the Phoenix game where he scored a 50-burger was obviously very cool and important, but I think this Chicago game showed a little bit more versatility that we're seeing, and get into some of his little details about a season that I think are interesting. Lakers game, I'm just going to do some easy bait for, I think, the 99.9% Jazz fans that are listening here. I can't stand the Lakers. I don't mind them as much as a LeBron outfit than a Kobe outfit. And as I was mentioning to some friends, I think my exposure to LA-based fans is lower than it ever used to be. I'm here in Colorado and everything, but it's, for some reason, my exposure on the internet, or how much, maybe it's just fewer engagement with trolls than we all kind of enjoyed doing 15 years ago in the early, in forum lands, and no pun intended with the LA forum, right? But it's the old arena, but it's just like with forum posting and stuff like that before Twitter and everything, was a little bit more engagement bait with arguing with really delusional Lakers fans. You just don't see that very much nowadays. And now the Lakers fans I do know, they're all fine because they're my friends most of all, but they're not the delusional types. But I think if you ever spend any decent time in California and meet a bunch of normal, like average Lakers fans, oh my God, you'll go right back to hating the Lakers so much again. Anyway, I still can't stand them. I can't stand the yellow and purple, and they were wearing black for some reason on against the Jazz. And Luka Doncic is, when he's not playing basketball, he's such a delightful, cool guy and really engaging personality, and he clearly loves just joking and playing basketball, and I love how he's constantly just giving it his all for his national team regardless of whatever. Like, just those sort of little things are pro basketball, pro personality that you just really like to see. There's a lot of his game that is just astounding to watch. His passing ability, his step back threes, the way he predicts movement of players, I think is very, very preternatural. Like, it's very, very cool to watch a player who doesn't do anything like he can do, or he does things that no other player can do, I should say. But the whining and the baiting is, I gotta put it out there, man. Like, it's unwatchable. It's Draymond Green level unwatchable. It makes me sad as a basketball fan. Like, it's just, this guy's completely off his rails complaining about the integrity of the sport that is happening here. And I'm having fun just watching the basketball game, and this guy clearly hates everything associated with the people who are officiating the basketball game, to a point of just like, he's allowed to just constantly complain and complain and complain, and because the cameras are always on him, you just see complaining all the time, and it's like, whoa, it's just like watching misbehaving children in a store and the parents just completely ignoring the situation, right? And I don't mean what parents can do with some misbehaving children who are just crying and screaming wherever, where you just ignore them. I'm talking about, children in a grocery store or something who are like wiping stuff off the counters and, grabbing apples and dropping them on the ground, like not addressing like a completely off the rails child. Like, that is what it feels like watching Luka, when they're not assessing technical fouls and they're just kind of letting him complain all the time. And watching some of the things that he was most egregiously complaining about against the Jazz, which, by the way, he got really beat up against Utah. I don't think he's not a soft player. He really does play really physically. I think that's an underrated part of Luka's game, and Utah was kind of beating him up a little bit. So I don't want to say that he's just the soft player that if you whisper on him, he's going to blow over, although he does do that quite often as it is, but he does play pretty physically. He engages contact, so a little credit there. But I've identified Luka's main problem with this whole whining, officiating, complaining thing that I think is just drives me the most nuts. He's one of those people, it doesn't have to be a basketball player. We all know people like this in our lives. He's one of those people where two true things can exist at the same time. And what I mean by that is, just because something happened to him that in a vacuum is a foul or something should have gone his way, the fact that there's another countervailing state of events or other incident that happened immediately before or concurrently with him does not mean that, or it's impossible to him that those could possibly cancel each other out, or preference was given to the other concurrent event. And let me be more specific with 2 examples that I think kind of show where he's at here, because constantly he's getting like fouled and touched and whatever, complaining, without understanding the entire scope of the entire basketball court or other things that are happening. The first thing that he was beyond losing his mind about was, I think it was Gabe Vincent, might have been Marcus Smart, but there was a 2-on-1 fast break. Lakers going against Utah. And Luka passes it to Gabe or Marcus. I'm going to say Gabe Vincent for the purposes of the story, but bear with me. So Luka passes it to Gabe Vincent for a layup on a 2-on-1 fast break. And Gabe Vincent decides he's not going to lay it up and said he's going to toss an alley-oop to Luka Doncic to go for a dunk. They're going against Keyonte George. And even if you were going to do another pass to Luka, maybe not an alley-oop dunk is the right conduit for that. Like, Luka can dunk. He's a big guy. He can get up there, but like that's not his like, oh, he doesn't have like, oh, he's going to get up there quickly and really jam it home. It's a little tough play for him. And Keyonte reads what Vincent's going to do immediately. And he jumps up vertically, but he's traveling backwards a little bit, so he's not completely straight up. But he volleyball spikes the pass out, and it's a turnover. So Luka also jumps, and both Keyonte and Luka land cleanly. The ball is well out gone by this point. And Luka never touched the ball, never even came close. Keyonte George completely did a great job volleyball spiking the pass super early. And then as Keyonte is coming down on his feet and Luka's down on his feet, and both players have touched the ground, it's Keontae's momentum carries him back into Luka, right? And kind of bumps him into Luka's leg a little bit. If it was a different situation, I could see it actually being a fairly serious injury. But it really wasn't that close. It was Keyonte just kind of bumping into Luka after the ball was completely gone, after both players went up to intercept or receive the alley-oop pass. That's not a foul. And especially because like Keyonte landed cleanly and did not like land on Luka. It was more of like, hey, their momentum kind of carried them gently into each other. And Luka was incredibly aggrieved by this. And we saw replays of it because it was a cool defensive play, but we also saw like, hey, why is Luka complaining so much? And in Luka's world, the fact that someone deigned to run into him and accidentally and almost hurt him is like that's a foul. Like I should be shooting free throws for some reason. Or side out, whatever. That's a foul. Instead of the also coexisting fact of Keyonte George is in legal guarding position, defends the pass, spikes the pass, lands cleanly. Your momentum also kind of carried you into Keyonte, but he's traveling backwards. You're going to the side. It's just a happenstance collision, not something where you had your right to a certain position on the court and he didn't. It's like it's the mere fact that he got run into, therefore foul. And the rule book isn't black and white like that. Oh, every time you touch him, it's a foul. It's not a thing. And of course, if God forbid he ever touches somebody else and you call foul on him, right? So it's like very annoying thing. And that was way too long of a story. I'll use the second example. I'll be quicker here. Luka's bringing the ball up after a defensive rebound or a turnover. I don't think it was a made basket. And all of a sudden, 3 Utah Jazz players converge on him in the backcourt. So you got 2 coming from the front side, I forget whom. And Kyle Anderson is sneaking up from behind. And he pokes the ball out. And he actually gets a full palm on the ball and takes it away from him. Super clean. Does not touch Luka. And as Luka's turning his head to go get the ball that he lost, he runs his face into Kyle Anderson's shoulder. Kyle Anderson just stripped the ball. Luka whips around and hits his face into Kyle Anderson's shoulder. And because Luka's kind of whipping around and going fast, he gets hit pretty hard in the face. But by this point, Kyle Anderson has made a clean strip of the basketball, and he actually, I think he had possession. Look back, I maybe didn't quite have possession, but he definitely got a firm hand on the ball and was going to make a play the other way. And in Luka's world, he got hit in the face while he was trying to dribble. Obviously, that's a foul. And he, for the next 2 minutes, he's going up to refs, showing him, a friction red mark on his forehead, saying, like, I got hit. Like, how is that not a foul? How is that not a foul? And I think it was deemed a foul on the court. Will Hardy challenges it, and they actually turn it into a no call. I think it ended up being a jump ball, I think was the outcome of that. But, so maybe Kyle Anderson did not have full possession of it. But it was a clean strip, and Kyle Anderson did not foul Luka just because Luka whipped his head back and ran into him. So it's just like, two facts can exist at the same time. Your grievances don't always take precedence. And similarly with Draymond Green, their magnificence in what they do is overshadowed by this sometimes. And in both of their players, who they are, they also have personalities that I want to shine greater a little bit. Luka's more so than Draymond's to an extent. But one thing I like about Draymond is, like, I like a good shit talker. I like a good heel. I like that he eggs on opponent crowds. I like that he eggs on opponents. I think that's good for the game. I like a good shit talker. That's fine. And it's that combined with grievances and grievance culture is just, like, gross. Luka, on the other hand, is a very joyous player. He's also a pretty good shit talker for his own right, but he's not like a mean guy out there. It seems like he's always got a whole lot of joy and connivance to his mean attitude is more like conniving and sly and evil. I think he's a joyous player. And then when you just see him also complaining all the time, it just drags it down. Then you add the Lakers element and just gross. And then you add how he got to the Lakers and it's even grosser. And I really do feel like we have to bring Nico Harrison in front of a panel, in front of a tribunal at The Hague for his crimes against humanity. But at least the Mavericks don't have to deal with him anymore. You feel most bad for Mavericks fans. They should be able to cheer on their guy, Luka Doncic, and instead they have nothing. Except a broken Anthony Davis and a first-round pick that will become nothing. So I did not enjoy watching that Lakers game. There was just something about, like, watching our Jazz on the road against those players and that team. I just wasn't having a good time. Next up, NBA Cup on Friday. And we're going to release this on Friday, my birthday. Let's go. For my birthday, I get to watch the Utah Jazz play. Oh, who are they playing? Oh, they're playing on the road at Oklahoma City. They're going to lose by 45. That'll definitely be a tape delay watch for me. I'm going to go on a date instead. Maybe I'll check the score or something. No, I won't do that. So the Jazz will probably lose at Oklahoma City tomorrow. I had a really dumb thought when I was going on a long walk today. I take my dogs on a long walk every day as much as I can. And this is where my dumbest thoughts come out. And one of my dumb thoughts was, Oklahoma City is in good shape in the NBA Cup where they're going to make it through. And they're also on cruise control for the number 1 seed in the NBA. Is this a strategic opportunity for Oklahoma City to try to gift Utah a win to try to boost Utah's position in the standings so that Oklahoma City has a better chance of getting Utah's draft pick. We'll always note the specifics of it. It's a top 8 protected pick. If it falls below or above 8, like worse than 8th, never know whether to say above or below for worse. But if it finishes worse than 8th for lottery luck or otherwise, that pick is Oklahoma City's. If it does not convey to Oklahoma City, it becomes nothing. No cash, no anything. It does not move over to the next year. This is the final year of this protected obligation by virtue of salary dumping Derek Favors 9,000 years ago. So, no, I don't think that the Thunder would do that. And even if the Thunder played only their 10 through 15 on their depth chart, they would still absolutely compete with whatever Utah's going to put out there and probably win the game anyways. I recall a game last year. It was at the end of the season. Utah had nobody. Like, they didn't have Kessler active, I don't think. They certainly didn't have Markkanen or Clarkson or John Collins. And Oklahoma City put out like their C+ team. Like, I think they had Cason Wallace was the only member of the playoff rotation who actually played in that game. But they had, AJ Mitchell and Big Jalen Williams and everything. And I think the Thunder still won by 50. I think the Utah's a little bit more talent on Friday than that, but it was a bad one. So no, I don't think the Thunder will intentionally try to lose that game, but it leads me into the topic of we're going to talk about it a little bit every week. I think it's going to be a tankathon watch. Because I just got done watching the Kings, who went into the season ostensibly motivated to win as many games as they can. They just lost to Memphis by a quadrillion points on the road at Memphis, but Memphis playing without John Morant or Jaren Jackson Jr. I think a couple other members of their team too are still out. Like Ty Jerome still hasn't played yet this year. And Sacramento has lost 8 in a row, and they're 1-9 in their last 10. And so if you look at the standings, obviously you have your triumvirate of the worst teams in the league who have no real path to get a lot better. Washington, Brooklyn, obvious dregs of the league. Indiana's still a curious case, but they just don't have the horses. They got Nembhard out there dragging around now. They have members of their playoff rotation back, but without Halliburton and Turner, they're drawing dead every night. So I think Indiana will be a little frisky this year, where I could see them winning 20 games, 25 games maybe. I think that's really high though. But anyways, those three: Washington, Indiana, Brooklyn. Okay, that's bottom 3. We got to have a higher pick than 9, right? We have to be 8 or better. Then you have 3 teams in the West that are trying. They go into this season saying, we are absolutely trying to make the play-in. For 3 different reasons, perhaps, but we're trying to make the play-in. New Orleans, they're trying to make the play-in as much as possible. Why? Because they just don't own their draft pick. So there's no reason for them to sandbag the season, tank the season. There's no reason they're going to be in February, March saying, well, we should bench our guys. We should bench the good players. We're always going to play hard because we don't own our 2026 draft pick. They are 2-13. They just fired their bad head coach and replaced him with perhaps an average head coach in James Borrego. I think the jury's still out on Borrego as what kind of quality of coach is he. But still better than Willie Green, I would say. And they just got Zion Williamson back. They're 2-13. And currently, I look at the NBA standings real quick, because I had a tab open for the NBA standings and now I lost it, so now it's making for great radio. They're 3 games back of the 10 seed, which is currently occupied by Utah. But let's that's not a lot of games back of a play-in. So I think New Orleans is going to be better than 2-13 going forward. I think their strength of schedule is pretty decent too, as far as like they don't have a super duper hard strength of schedule remaining. Yeah, they have right smack in the middle remaining strength of schedule left. New Orleans does. So 3 teams ostensibly trying. New Orleans, because they kind of have to. Don't really have a reason not to. Sacramento, I just talked about them. They're 3-13. They look awful. Why are they trying to make the play-in? Because that's Vivek Ranadive. That's the Sacramento Kings. The Sacramento Kings, no matter every single time in their entire franchise history, from the Maloofs to Ranadive, they do not tank for the purposes of tanking. They just play out the season. They try. So I think they're still going to try every night. There's so many anchor points for them. One is Doug Christie is the 30th best coach in the NBA. It was a miserable, stupid hire and they gave way too much credit to a guy who took over for a unfairly fired Mike Brown last year. Had some surprising successful victories after Mike Brown went down. It's the new interim coach little boost you get, probably in playing with a lot of Mike Brown's instilled principles. Doug Christie gets an entire offseason and his team is 3-13. His press conferences don't instill a lot of like, oh, this guy knows what he's doing and he's explaining some real interesting basketball concepts where he's going to get Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan in the right spot to play together and do some good things. And then you're adding Dennis Schroeder and Russell. It doesn't work. So you get bad roster construction. Doug Christie's your coach. And now we just learned that Domantas Sabonis is going to be out for 4 weeks with a partially torn meniscus. And let me tell you, that does not sound like that's a 4-week injury. And also 4 weeks is a hell of a long time. And also, we thought we were having trouble with Yusuf Nurkic as our backup center for Walker Kessler being down. Their backup center is old Jazz friend Drew Eubanks. Sacramento signed him as a free agent, and I can't help but wonder, were they watching Drew Eubanks last year for both the Clippers and the Jazz? Give me a break. But Sacramento will still be trying. The third team that will be trying, the Dallas Mavericks. A lot of people in Dallas land are just, after you fire Nico Harrison was one of the very few, or not very few, but he was one of the elements of this team is trying. He's going to try to keep his job. If they're around the 10 seed, around the trade deadline, he's going to do moral hazard trades. A moral hazard trade is, screw the future, I'm making the 10 seed because I'm trying to save my job. But you still have a competitive and healthy Kyrie Irving waiting in the wings, where he's going to come back and say, like, no, I want to play basketball. I think we underrate how freakishly competitive a lot of these players are, especially a guy like Kyrie Irving, who can sometimes come across as joking or jovial or just kind of happy-go-lucky, and he's doing his Uncle Drew stuff. No, if you're reaching it at that level, you are freakishly competitive. Freakishly competitive. You want to play and win. Same thing with Anthony Davis. He'll be back sooner than we think. He'll probably get hurt again, but he's not too far away from coming back. A little bit longer. I think it's going to be a couple weeks, which is still a long time, but Yeah, it should another 10 days it looks like for Anthony Davis. So I think Dallas is going to be full of, I don't like, their roster isn't as poorly constructed as the Kings or the Pelicans. I think they actually have some decent talent here. I think D'Angelo Russell is a miserable point guard, but he'll get you the 10 seed. They almost stole a win against the Knicks and had a horrible call at the end of the game against them to lose that game. Specifics of it, just because it's on my mind. They're driving for a tying layup at the end on kind of like a full court press situation, and the offensive player Goodwin. Who's their new backup point guard? I'm already forgetting the backup point guard for our friends at the Dallas Mavericks, who I've always really liked. Brandon Williams, that's right. He's got some skills. He's driving in for the winning layup, and he has a slight little arm hook against Landry Shamet for the Knicks, who bumps him beforehand. The layup goes in, but they call an offensive foul. There's just no way that officials call a foul on that. In 90% of that's a preposterous foul. I think they're going to be pretty decent the rest of the way. Not great, not good, but I'm a little bit more optimistic on the Mavericks, and I think that there's some organizational incentive to still try and keep winning instead of just tell Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis we're shutting you down or trading you. I don't think that you can trade Anthony Davis or Kyrie Irving right now because you're not getting appropriate returns for those players. So as we look at those teams, it's like I think New Orleans and Dallas are going to end up being better than Utah. I think Sacramento's drawing dead. Like Indiana. And I think with a new regime who did not trade for DeRozan, who did not trade for Zach LaVine, I think they will trade those guys for pennies. And I think they'll be able to convince Vivek one time to do that. Go get yourself a good draft pick, see what you can do the next year. And I think the current management, though, what'll be funny is because Vivek Ranadive is so impatient, next season they'll be in the middle of another terrible season because maybe DeRozan and LaVine are gone by this point. They got a new fancy rookie, but it's just one guy. Sabonis is quite a bit older. And they're going to get to next trade deadline or next offseason, and Vivek will be like, okay, 2 bad seasons. That's it. You guys got to be good again. And they'll make a whole bunch of panic moves next offseason and try to be good. They won't be good. They'll win 34 games. They'll fire the management and start this whole chain all over again. Because that's Sacramento Kings basketball. So I think Dallas and New Orleans is coming from a deeper hole, but like they're 2-13, Dallas is 4-12. Like not really that much different. I think they're better than that. And I think New Orleans and Dallas especially are going to really beat up on Brooklyn, Sacramento, Indiana, and Washington. 2 other teams that are ostensibly better than Utah right now. Memphis and the Clippers. Clippers don't have their draft pick. And I don't care if they also lose James Harden for the season. They are a team that will just run through the tape. They have enough depth and good talent and a good coach to win 36 games and make the play-in. Not a problem for them. No chance. Memphis, not quite as effusive as a story as LA. They do have their draft pick. But they do have some good depth. And they get Ty Jerome coming back to cover for in a little bit to cover for all of the John Morant stuff. Like if he's out of the lineup or whatever. Jaren Jackson Jr. is still a Defensive Player of the Year candidate every year. They got some good tools around him. They also have a good little situation where they could look around and say, look, if we can get some sort of decent draft asset or replacement player for John Morant, we can take that Desmond Bane haul we got and just retool this roster a little bit to fit more of what Thomas Isolo is trying to do from a coaching perspective. Just add some talent at the deadline. I think there's a lot more upside with Memphis. Last team to mention, Utah East, which is Charlotte. Young team, putting out a team that is trying every night. LaMelo Ball is their Lauri Markkanen. Difference is LaMelo Ball hardly plays. And apparently today, reports say he is open to a trade. He responded to that on Twitter with a single clown emoji, which is, as I tell people, that is exactly the kind of response someone who has requested a trade would say. Oh, yeah, just a clown emoji. Nah, it sounds like someone who, instead of saying like, hey, this report isn't accurate, I'm committed to the Charlotte Hornets, ready to play. Even in like a LaMelo Ball style way of like, no, I'm good with like however he wants to explain it. A single clown emoji suggests like, what exactly about the story is inaccurate, Mr. Ball? Especially coming from, the LeVar Ball family of like manifest what you want kind of thing. But I think Charlotte is trying. So I think the Charlotte-Utah positioning at the end of the season will be more interesting than all the rest of this stuff. So if I look at it, I think our friend of Salt City Hoops, Andy Larson, put it best when he said, I'm going to try to pull up his exact quote from his triple team the other day. I still think it probably works out for the Jazz to be able to push for wins this season, but still lose enough to keep the pick. But I'm not as confident in this plan as I was a month ago. That's exactly how I feel. Because I think Utah has no chance of catching Washington, Indiana, or Brooklyn. So we're now fourth. I think Sacramento's dead. And I don't think they're going to... The Sacramento-Utah difference might... The only saving grace for Sacramento is that they have the easiest remaining schedule in the NBA, and it's not really that close. And it's hard for a bad team to have the easiest remaining schedule because you can't play yourself. So it's interesting that they have the easiest remaining schedule. But I'm going to put Sacramento as worse than Utah at this point. We're seeing a dead team with a bad coach. And without their best player. Puts Utah fifth. And if Utah's fifth, now we start into you don't have a 100% chance of keeping the pick. If you have the fifth worst record, you have a 99.4% chance of keeping your pick. Just pointing it out. It's 99.4. It requires like teams from the back end of the lottery, like multiple teams jumping you. It's not going to happen. There's a 0.6% chance of that happening. Dallas and New Orleans and Charlotte. It'd be great if Utah can be worse than two of them. I think they're only going to be worse than one of them. And I think it's going to be someone like Dallas. I think New Orleans might be digging themselves a little bit of a hole, a little talent deficit. They really don't have a great front court as far as like, I consider, Zion's a front court guy, but when I think like just their big man rotation of I guess Derek Queen plays a little bit of center because he kind of has to, and he played center in college. But then you also have, Karlo Makovic and Misi. Like, I don't really, Kevon Looney. These are not inspiring guys to really help you. And they're being led by a rookie point guard, Jeremiah Fears, who looks great, but it's a rookie point guard. And a lot of other direct on the roster. Love Trey Murphy and Herb Jones. Can Borrego get what he needs out of them defensively? But I there's something about New Orleans and Charlotte that tells me I think Utah, no matter what they do, are going to end up being like annoyingly always 1 to 3 games better than them all season. We can't catch them in the loss column. And then I think Dallas and the Clippers and Memphis are they're going to easily surpass Utah, in my opinion. So that puts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams. Utah is 7th. If Utah is 7th, they have an 84.8% chance of keeping their pick. 84.8% chance. It's a little scary. I know we talked about this last week as well, but it's like after watching Sacramento play as poorly as they did, it starts to raise my eyebrows a little bit of like, do enough teams have, even if they have the incentive to win, do they actually have enough? So we'll see. The last thing I want to talk about is Lauri Markkanen. Perhaps I should have led with Lauri Markkanen. But I'm starting to change a lot of my priors on him a little bit because I think he's becoming a quite more evolved player. We're seeing an evolved version of Lauri Markkanen. I have, perhaps pejoratively, but pretty decisively said that Lauri Markkanen is a dependent threat. And of course, what I mean by that is you can't just toss him the ball and tell him to, make passes for others, dribble the basketball, do things where we're giving you the ball at the top of the key or wherever and saying the offense runs with your direction and the basketball starts with you. And two things have started to change my opinion on that. One, the simple one is a lot of my thoughts were kind of clouded and unclear about things, but something didn't feel right, and it got congealed when I finally read Dan Clayton's Salt City 7 this week when he talked about Lauri Markkanen. And how Lauri Markkanen is operating on offense where he is directing traffic and directing mismatches and choosing matchups without the basketball. He's kind of like running around hunting stuff out there. And the ball handlers are coached to know, like, Lauri's hunting for his spots. He's laying his traps all over the battlefield, then we'll give him the basketball to be a superstar. And it's very unorthodox. I think it's unfair now to just say he's running around a bunch of screens and he's getting the ball after running around like Steph Curry around a trillion screens and then doing a bunch of catch and shoots. It's true he's dribbling way, way, way less than anyone who could possibly score at this rate. That's true. But he's not zero dribble Magoo out there. That's a new term. I hope you like that. Zero dribble Magoo. I don't know where from my brain that came from. It's not just that he's running these set plays designed to get him open, coming off of flare screens or whatever, and shooting catch and shoots. I've been noticing, and Dan did a great job showing some clips of this, that he's kind of forcing his way into certain positions and demanding the ball or demanding certain actions where he is directing it, but normally the guy with the ball is kind of directing the action or whatever. Lauri's been kind of the guy kind of forcing the defense to move with him, especially now that we're 10 games in, he's getting scouted in all these ways where your cute pet plays don't necessarily work to get him open. He's the one who's, instead of doing a lot of like almost improv work to say, hey, these are the matchups I want, here's how we're going to get it, especially throughout the course of a game where if a team reacts in some way to certain action he did before, he's going to improv a little bit to figure out, well, no, I need to move in this way to get the ball in a spot versus this defender. It's akin to a wide receiver calling plays on offense for a football team. Which is crazy when we think about like the NFL or even like really good college football context. But it's not crazy when you think about the importance of wide receivers, outsized importance of wide receivers in certain teams in two respects. One, if you like certain like high school games and stuff like that, not necessarily the wide receiver is calling plays, but it's like the wide receiver is, if you have a star player who is not the quarterback and it's like the entire offense is revolved around him, it's going to be, hey, where do you, sir, want the ball? And how do you want to do it this time? Do you want to run the ball out of the backfield? Do you want to catch a pass? And like where do you want to receive the next play? The other element of this is if you ever see star receivers playing with real dog shit quarterbacks, that those receivers still put up numbers because the entire offense is geared around not only them making great plays based on the play that the coach called or whatever, but they have so much variability in how they run a route or whatever, where the quarterback's only job is not to understand the 7 players on the field, or the 6 eligible receivers, I should say. 5 eligible receivers, I should say. Where he's got to know the quarterback has to know the ins and outs of every single preference and coverage and whatever. And instead it's just, hey, this receiver can run whatever he wants, and I understand based on where he's trying to go and what the opponent is trying to do. All I care about is making sure that I predict his actions correctly. And that's kind of what like guys like Isaiah Lauri and Keyonte George are doing for Lauri Markkanen. Is a lot of their passing, a lot of it's great, good point guard stuff. We talked a lot about the evolution of both Keyonte and Collier throughout this season. I think they're doing a great job. But a lot of it is Lauri's just figuring out how to get open on a lot of improv-based stuff, or just kind of not pure improv, but some of it just let Lauri decide how this is going to go, and the point guard's accurately understanding what the star receiver, is trying to do and just saying, okay, here you go, here's the ball. It's really, really cool to watch. The last thing I'll say is I really want to emphasize that this is not catch and shoot Lauri Markkanen. Where I was dismayed last year, and I think has been completely kind of taken out of his game this year, is giving him the ball at a standstill and saying, help us. And I just didn't feel like he even made remotely good decisions in those circumstances. The complete other end of the spectrum that people think Lauri is just like, oh, well, now he just never dribbles the ball and he just catches and shoots. Utah has realized, and perhaps they knew this all along, and last year was just kind of an experimentation year for a lot of reasons, but Utah has realized, let's just use those words because I used them, that if Lauri just gets a small advantage on the move or against a weak defender, and he's just kind of moving when he catches it, or at least not just like gets the ball and everyone just clears out and acts stuck in mud, if you give Lauri a little bit of movement when he's catching the ball, and it doesn't necessarily have to be, and it usually isn't, it doesn't necessarily have to be he's going downhill towards the basket when you give him the ball. That was a lot of what happened in 2022, 2023. We're doing a lot of good things with Lauri marketing, but he was getting the ball a lot, kind of downhill a lot a few years ago. Now it's just, let's get him the ball when he's not at a standstill. It's constantly just moving. And when Lauri gets the ball off movement, he absolutely is a fast dribbler, quick decision maker. He's a very quick decision maker. And he is accelerating in places and decelerating in places and doing interesting, not like flashy dribble moves, but just feints and fakes and ways to really get defenders completely off balance. His own balance is terrific. Rarely, if ever, travels with bad footing or something like that. And he's becoming lethal off these catches on the move. The biggest place I've seen an improvement from him. And this makes me very, very excited. And I think you all should be really noticing this when you start watching Lauri. You read Dan's piece on Salt City 7 on Lauri picking his spots, by the way. And I think this is going to be something we should all pay attention to going forward, is that and this other point. You need to watch Lauri's passing decisions after the catch now. His vision has gone up 25%. And I don't think it's necessarily that he's didn't see the players before. I think it's now that he understands that certain outlets are a reason for him to, like, if he's driving to the rim off of a catch, or he's coming around to curl for a 3 and the shot just doesn't feel right, and you got 12 seconds left on the shot clock, or you got 6 seconds left on the shot clock, and he's kind of curling around or attacking and he's dribbling, and he's understanding, if I make this pass to this player who's open, I can keep moving. I can keep curling around. We're going to set up another switch another way, and it'll take 2, 3, 4 seconds maximum, and I'm probably getting the ball back because this entire effing offense revolves around me. Right? And we've used the phrase often, for a player who touches the ball as much as he does, it's very odd and scary that he doesn't have as many assists that he does. Like, very, very, very low assists. Because he's always getting the ball and shoot. He's always shooting. It was always very advantageous for him to shoot, and still very much often is very advantageous for the best Lauri market in play to be a shot. But now he's really facilitating out of these positions a lot more. And a lot of his passes aren't necessarily to players who are like wide open catch and shoot guys, right? It's just passes to the next part of the offense, because we're going to continue spinning this cyclone of the Jazz offense. It is really, really well run. I want to give a quick shout out to Ace Bailey, by the way. Ace Bailey is never confused where to be on the court offensively. He as soon as a ball in another player's hand reaches a certain point on the court, he knows exactly what cut to make or what screen to set. I think dude's smart out there. Dude's really unselfishly smart. So Lauri's kind of making these passes, and because he's naturally just giving the ball up a little bit more, some of these players are open, or they're doing their own thing to get their own shot, and those become assists. And so now Lauri has a career high in assists per game. Now Lauri has a career high in assist to turnover ratio. Now Lauri has a career high in assist percentage. And I think he has a career high in usage, if I'm not mistaken. Career high in usage by a significant margin. The usage this year is 25.3%, which is what percentage of the team's offense ends up with shooting, passing, or turning the ball over. over a quarter of Utah's possessions, and with a Lauri something. Previous high was 23.7 in 2020 and 3 years ago, his star season. But his everything passing wise is major career highs for Lauri. Because I think the way he's effectuating the offense designed for him is he's not passing for dishing the rock around looking for players. It's more, hey, just finding the next step of the offense, moving around. Perhaps I'm going to get the ball back, perhaps I'm not, but my advantages are wreaking havoc on everyone, and if the help is crashing in on me, the defense is stressed out about everything that I'm doing. I don't have to shoot this 1-on-3. I don't have to dunk it over 2 people. I can just pass it to Ace in the corner. He's pretty good. Last week, I was commenting with somebody else that, he's not... I think I said on last week's podcast, he's not peak Lauri Markkanen. Part of my evidence for that was that his effective field goal percentage still wasn't all that super great. His 3-point shooting still wasn't... It was good, but not great. After a week and a half since I think we last spoke, or 8-9 days, whatever, he's had the Atlanta explosion, he's had the Chicago explosion, he had the Indiana explosion, which I don't think we had talked about. Yeah, everything. His shooting is back. He's shooting a career high at the rim now. Last year, he was, listening to the first few podcasts from the fall of last year, he could not finish at the rim. He was shooting 1-on-4 at the rim. It was just looked awful. And now he's being more selective, I think, to be sure. He's shooting 76% at the rim, guys. That's a really, really healthy number for a forward. Shooting 39% from 3, 57% effective field goal percentage, which isn't quite a career high, but it's pretty damn close, guys. Shot 58.7% effective field goal percentage in 2022, which is going to be we're going to keep using 2022, guys, as the holy shit year. And he's better than that this year. I think this past week really cemented it for me. He's a better basketball player. I mean, you'd hope so. I would talk, once again, his name is in trade discussions on the Zach Lowe show, because that's all they seem to want to talk about when it comes to the Jazz is what should Detroit specifically trade for Lauri Markkanen. Price of the brick went up on that. At least he acknowledged that, yep, Lauri Markkanen will require 4 first-round swaps, Jaden Ivey, Ron Holland, that sort of thing. I'm not going to opine on that. I don't have eloquent thoughts on that. Just wanted to point out that before I thought he was 90% of his 2022 self, I think he's at about 105% of his 2022 version of Lauri Markkanen. Very cool player to watch. Let's give some real shout-outs here. That 2022 season was in large part due to the success of playing with Mike Conley and having Colin Sexton as a backup or a complementary piece, right? Instead of a primary point guard, but a very good passing complementary piece. And Jordan Clarkson, who was asked to do a little bit more in the back half of the year. And now the shout out goes to Keyonte and Zay. Zay still got the passing chops, and he's really playing well with Markkanen. And Key, we can't just heap enough praise on him for what he's learned to do from a passing perspective. Also, the on-court relationship with Markkanen really looks sound. We saw Key visiting Finland this year. That must have been pretty cool for him. Past week, we've seen a lot of bad Keyonte shooting decisions. like a lot of random pull-ups, a lot of nobody else touches the ball, and I'm going to shoot it with 12 seconds left on the shot clock. Little bit of like star behavior from someone who's like, yeah, buddy, you've had a nice season. We like what's going on here, but like, you can't do that yet. This is still an offense that requires like, it is very much designed around the big men touching the ball and facilitating passing, and maybe it comes all the way back around. We are going to rely on you to dribble and shoot and pass a lot. Please don't hijack the offense. And he's done a little hijacking lately, which, again, we're not out of the woods with him yet, right? It's been a great start to the season. Let's keep that level head, man, the whole year, or at least until like February. And then if you do a bunch of stupid stuff, that's fine. He shot the ball pretty decently as of late. I'm not going to get into a Keyonte thing right now. I wanted to end on Lauri Markkanen and to say that dude's awesome. You should watch him. So, that's our show today. Again, releasing this on Friday the 21st. So, for a birthday present, if you want to drop a like, subscribe, review, comment, social media responds, find me, talk to me about the show. Have a good time. My name is Mark Pereira for Salt City Hoops. Maybe we'll steal a win against the Thunder, which will be bad in a couple respects. But if we steal a win on the road against the Thunder on NBA Cup night, we might have some fun with it along the way. So, we'll see. That's all I got for this one, and we will catch you next week. Good night.